This channel is made possible through the support of generous listeners just like you. If you would like to be a part of helping us bring our message of hope, peace, love, and spiritual truth to the world, please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support, where you can join us as an ongoing patron or simply make a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 75. Special guest, Ken Lovern. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm here in 818 Studios with my producer.
Hello, everybody. This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us. And if nobody has said it yet, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
That's right.
Welcome to December.
Right. Happy Monday. We love to be the ones to wish you Happy Monday, and we're welcoming you into the month of December. And December is star-studded, friends. And today, the first star of this month is my good friend I was going to say fellow co-journer on the journey. That's just way too long. But my good friend Ken Lovern is here, and Ken is famous in my life for being my accountability partner. Ken holds me to what I say it is I'm going to do. So Ken, welcome to the show, man. We're glad to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
So Ken, tell us where you're joining us from.
I am joining you from my backyard keyboard fort here in the blues breeding ground of Mission, Kansas. And, we've got a studio we built in our backyard here, and so I am holed up in a completely disclosed location.
Exactly. Well, I love having you here, and I do hope you're going to play a little bit for us later in the show. Everybody in Kansas City knows you as a musician. You've been a band leader, an incredible musician for many, many years. I first met you at Unity of Overland Park, playing in the band there, but you're a band leader. You've got you're just gigging all the time these days.
Yes, and my gigging's become, very steady, where I'm at the Green Lady Lounge.
Right.
Tuesday through Saturday night. I'm there 6 to 10, 6 to 11, or 8 to 11, 5 nights a week. So that's been unusual, in my life as a musician. I've usually been in a variety of places, and even from week to week, it might be completely different. The church gig at Unity Church of Overland Park was unique in that I was there every Sunday for 20 years. And for years, that was maybe, I had a few steady gigs, but if it was a steady, it was only one night a week. So yeah, that's a different phase of my career where it's easy to find me. I'm at the same place.
I know.
5 nights a week.
Well, every time my friends go to Kansas City, I don't think you know this, but I often, send them in to come hear you and come hear the band, because it's a great venue, and it's a great thing that you've really created down there. But what a lot of people probably don't know is that you're a lawyer too. I always find that really cool that you are brilliant in so many facets of life, but you're not practicing law anymore. Is that correct?
That's right. I haven't, it's probably been 7 or 8 years. And really, I worked as a research attorney or law clerk for a judge on the Kansas Court of Appeals for about 3 years.
Yeah.
That was the peak of my legal career. It was a brief peak. I peaked right after law school and did that for about 3 years. And then I practiced law, pretty earnestly for another 5 or 6 years. But I really couldn't get away from being a musician. I'd been a musician before law school, and the pull of playing music and being on the creative side of ventures was just irresistible for me.
Yes. Well, I remember when I first had met you, this is, 20 years ago or more, somebody said, well, he's kind of a lawyer to support his B3 habit. That was how somebody described you to me.
Yes. Well, and a large part of my law practice was focused on entertainment-related things.
Yeah.
And I worked for small record labels. And about the time of Napster, a lot of those small record labels started to go out of business.
Oh, right.
And
Right.
so that was another factor that kind of led me to really quit practicing law. Was a lot of the clients and a lot of the work I enjoyed changed, it just, and
Yeah.
things transition quickly in our world.
But yes, they do. They do. Well, I'm glad you're on the show. We just got so deep into that. I really want people to get to know you. You're an important person in my life, and I talk to you more regularly than anybody probably in my life because we speak every week. Several years ago, I reached out to Ken when I was really trying to move forward in some areas of my life, and I kind of kept up, Ken, with you with some of your work. Believe it or not, just through Facebook, seeing what you were doing, seeing, what you'd been up to. And we had mutual friends and we knew each other. We weren't super close, but we knew each other. And I remember I reached out to you and said, hey, I really just want somebody to help me be accountable. And you said, yeah, I'm down, but only if, you'll do the same for me kind of thing.
Right.
And so that's been, I was just realizing, I think this January, I think it's going to be like 4 years
Right.
that that we've talked to each other like every week, and I think we've only missed a couple times probably in all that time.
That's right. Yeah, a few weeks when somebody's on vacation. That's about it.
Yeah, and even last week, when I was gone, actually a little over a month ago, I had called you from Colorado as well. So you're a great support to me there. So I think I wanted to bring you on the show for a number of reasons. One is, as I said, you're an important person in my life, and you've really helped me on the journey. Just stay really clear, stay really open, and also, just really be consistent in my journey. It's. I think I told one of our classes one time that when I would talk to you on the phone, the one thing I hadn't worked on that week would be the one thing you chose to ask about. So you have a intuition about how you zero in on that. But again, why I reached out to you originally was I've always been impressed with your how important your spiritual life is and how it really impacts every other area of your life. And I see you being very successful as a musician. As you said, you got a regular gig. I know a lot of musicians who would really love the gig you've got. And but it just always touches me, the level of your commitment to your spiritual growth.
Well, I've had some great teachers like you.
Yeah.
And really, I think Joseph Campbell was sort of like the beginning of me becoming aware of even what a spiritual journey is.
Yes.
And, certainly a lot of the law of attraction teachings I'm attracted to. And
I know. Yes. Right.
And accountability and integrity has always been super important to me. But I'm constantly impressed with just what we focus on expands,
Yes.
And what we think about controls our experience.
Yes. It's so simple, isn't it? Yeah.
And it seems sometimes like, my life and our lives, but I guess I can only speak for myself. That my life is like really a challenge to how much do I really believe that,
Yeah.
Because if you want to test it, if I want to test it, there's every day is an opportunity to try to create more of what you want and more of what you want in your life, and that's always up for me. It's always on my plate in terms of if I'm not happy about what's going on, or I want something to be better, I want something to be maybe different, or I want more of this and less of that. I always remind myself, it's like, well, who's in charge?
Right. Exactly.
And generally it's me, and there's other factors and other circumstances, but I keep coming back to that. And I've been impressed, with what I've been able to create. I make a living playing jazz organ.
Right. What up with that? Right.
Right. That's like really not very many people in the world do that. It's a small number.
Right, for
Um,
sure.
and from where I was when I first had the idea to do that, 25 years ago, it did take me a long time. It took a long time, and but I've been impressed with how if you set a goal and you work towards it and you think good thoughts about it, um, things seem to work out for that to happen. And it's not. I have had my share of frustrations, but boy, in general, things move in the direction that you think.
Yeah, I know that's absolutely true, and that's, I think, in our work together, what's been really important. Somebody asked me one time, "Do you feel with your accountability partner competition?" And I kind of burst out laughing, and I said, "I feel inspiration, not competition, because for one thing, we're not even doing the same thing, and even if we were, I would just be happy for you. Competition was the last thing on my mind." But what happens is, you're doing your work and I'm doing mine. Like, so often you'll have movement forward on something, and I'm like, like recently, I said, "Well, I'm kind of hanging out right now. I'm not journaling. I'm not, but I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing." And you're having a lot of forward movement. And I'm like, "See, this stuff works." So I think there is an ebb and flow to the work. And I have seen you, over and over and over, really get guidance about what was yours to do or something you were wanting to manifest, and then step forward, to do it. I also want to say for our listeners, so often when we talk about things like this, when we talk about, an idea that you have and manifesting, and that if you think, thoughts and you put your emotions with it, you manifest. We often want that to happen overnight. And as you're saying, hey, it took a while, but boy, I'm living the life that I really set out for myself and I really visioned. And I think sometimes we forget the commitment aspect, the also having the skill. Sometimes we're just dreaming and we don't have the skill or the commitment or the drive, to see it through. And so that is one of the things I've seen you do over and over, your commitment to it, to seeing it through.
Yeah, and that's it. I guess finding a good match between your dreams and your
Mhm.
skills
Mhm.
and the reality of the world. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
because
exactly.
there's things I wish I'd played more when I was younger. I wish I had better musical skills. And I'm at a point in my life where I can refine skills. I can improve things. But I'm 53. I'll be 54 years old pretty soon. I'm not gonna completely change a skill set.
Mhm.
And so I'm sort of in a point where I'm trying to refine, what I want to create and what I want to do,
Mhm.
um, based on what I have to work with, you know.
Yeah.
And I do contemplate, I'm a composer. I've done a lot of composing,
Mhm.
mostly and I've done mostly like instrumental organ jazz, the kind of groups I play with.
Right.
But I'd like to expand that.
Mhm.
And so that's something that, it'll take some different skills, but I think there's skills I have, and that, it's real. I think that's a realistic dream, even though I am
Absolutely.
sort of asking for things that I don't know how it's going to happen.
Mhm.
I don't know how to make money as a composer separate from playing the music. I mean, I guess I have some ideas, but I don't know how it would happen for me, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
We should talk, Ken.
Yeah, that's Dave, our producer.
That's what I do. I teach
Right.
music composition at Full Sail, and I do music for TV, and so yes, we should talk.
Yes.
Not now during the show, but later.
Well, no, I've been wanting to get you guys together for that very reason. And I was thinking, Ken, though, you have done other composing, though, for kids programs and things like that.
Right. Yeah. I've done, music for puppet shows, and I really enjoy doing the musical stuff.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it comes easily to me. If somebody gives me lyrics, I can write a song with it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That comes easy. And so and I guess that's the kind of thing. It's like I got a gig doing that. I've worked with this puppet show company at Stone Line Puppets here in Kansas City for 20 years.
Yeah.
But the last couple I've done, it's really pretty easy for me to write. She gives me lyrics.
Yeah.
And the woman who runs the company, she writes the lyrics, and it's pretty easy for me. And she puts them in a pretty good verse chorus format usually. And but it's easy and I enjoy it. And that's sort of something that's like lights a light bulb for me. It's like, okay, I
Yeah.
like this. I'd like to do more of this.
And I think that's one of the key things in manifesting. And, the show, our show really is authentic spiritual conversations among friends, but there's several topics we come back to in manifestation, prosperity. Those are, that's a theme that we often come back to because we're all trying to manifest something, just in life in general. We're all trying to manifest something. And I think one of the keys to any manifestation is, does it bring you joy? If what we're trying to do just feels arduous all the time, it's not something we're probably going to have a lot of success, in bringing forward. But I think, this gives you a lot of energy, a lot of joy when you do it. So, clearly the manifestation happens. So I'm saying this for all our listeners. I know this is not new to you, Ken, but for some of our listeners, learning how powerful of a co-creator how powerful we are in terms of being a co-creator, it's just these reminders are very helpful. And they're helpful to me too. And I've been on this journey for many, many years. But it's like, okay, this is bringing me joy. Then I need to do more of that, and then the manifestation definitely comes easier.
Right. Yeah. Follow your bliss.
Follow your bliss, man. Well, and that reminds me too of your mission. So much of my work over the last several years that our work together has been about, really being clear about what we're here to do, what we're here to bring. And, I've had several classes on the topic. I've even had you call in my Dream Big, Live Big classes where I was doing a vision and kind of mission, dreams, goals, and we were getting down even into practices. I'd love for you to share your mission, because I know you've had it for some time and have revisited it several times, and it just feels like exactly what we're talking about now. What's your mission?
To share music and consciousness to create bliss.
Yes, I love that. To share music and consciousness to create bliss. Yes. That definitely.
Yeah, and I got that mission at a good old fashioned go out in the country and beat drums weekend.
Nice. Well, I'm a big fan of that. So
it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, and what I love about where you are and what you're doing, you're playing at the Green Lady Lounge, right? It's a lounge. So people are hanging out, they're, kicking a few back, and you've got this expanding spiritual consciousness sitting over there at the organ. And I've been there many times. I took a whole vacation around hearing you play basically every night. And you can feel it, you feel that in the music. So, so describe a little bit for people what the Green Lady is, because it's like an old style, like jazz lounge, right?
Right. Kind of a retro cocktail lounge. It's in downtown Kansas City at 18th and Grand. And from the outside, it doesn't really look like much. But when you go inside, the walls are red. There's all these antiques, lots of old pictures on the walls.
Yeah.
Pictures from the first half of the 20th century, photographs and family photographs, and lots of really cool lighting.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to greenlady.com and see photos of that and see kind of what the inside of the club looks like. But people commonly will walk in and go, whoa, because, from the outside, it's just a brick storefront.
Yeah, it's a little green awning, and like it's kind of, yeah. And then you walk in and go, oh, this is a deal. This is a thing.
Right.
And yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's just, there's bands, right near the front door is where the upstairs band is set up, and we're kind of set up in the middle of seating, so it's almost like we're, not quite in the round, but kind of like that. And the bar is kind of a long shotgun type bar. So people that want to listen can get up close, and people that want to talk can go in back. And that generally works pretty well. We sure appreciate on the weekends when we have people who are there to listen.
Yeah.
You don't like being wallpaper?
Right. And we get some really good audiences in there.
You do.
We're, the weeknights aren't quite as busy. The weekends get so busy, it can be hard to walk through there sometimes. And that's kind of a different kind of fun, and it can be very exciting, so there's kind of different experiences depending on whether you go on a weeknight or a weekend. On the weekend, there's also bands downstairs, in the Orion room. You've been downstairs too.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. I know there's a lot going on. And then there's also the place next door too, where you
Right, the
play
Black Dolphin next door.
Black Dolphin
Uh,
as well. Yeah. Well,
so yeah, there's 3 stages right there, all on one tab.
yep. 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 Well, what was really cool when I was there the last time, and I was there, I think the last time during the week, and I brought a bunch of people in, and it was a blast. I think we even got Bukeka to sing one with us, and to sing with you guys while we were all hanging out.
Right.
But what was so cool for me in being there is, honestly, it's some of the world's best jazz musicians come in there, to play with you, and it's people of all ages. I was really surprised that there's a lot of like 20-something millennials, and then a lot of people in their 70s and even 80s hanging out and hearing the same music. And I love that. It's like party down. This is good music, good vibe, good people. And there's just, I don't know, it's a nice celebration of music down there. And music I grew up on jazz. So for me, it's a great energy to be around down there.
I'm really very, very blessed to the musicians I get to play with.
Yeah.
Brian Baggett's been in my group OJT for about 15 years now.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough to get to play with the drummer Todd Strait. He's
amazing.
Played with tons. His first gig, one of his early gigs was playing with Marion McPartland. And he's played with he's done a lot of touring with a variety of people. But he's back in Kansas City, so I'm lucky to have him on the gig. He travels some still, so I'm glad to have him when I can. Danny Embry, another great guitar player. He's kind of the guitarist emeritus of Kansas City.
Yeah.
Most of the good guitar players in town have taken lessons with Danny, or took lessons with him 20 years ago.
Right.
And he also toured a lot with Sergio Mendes and other people. And I could just keep naming musicians, but everybody that I get to play with, I'm really feel very blessed, and it's a good community. The Kansas City music community has always been very supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you need somebody to cover a gig last minute or whatever, people are always ready to help out and do what they can and support each other and come out to each other's gigs. And that's been, I think, one of the joys of my life is just being a part of that community. And and you see it in the quality of musicianship. People,
Oh, totally. Mm-hmm.
People really care about, the music being as good as it can be in any given circumstance.
For sure. Well, we're going to hear more about that. Believe it or not, we already have to go to a break. So, friends, thank you for joining us today. We'll be back right after this.
We'll return to the program in just a few minutes, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. CCU Orlando is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. CCU Orlando is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. We'd also like to thank Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by heading over to nacfl.com. And finally, we'd like to extend our special thanks to Unity of Nashville, a sister ministry of CCU Orlando. If you're searching for a like-minded church community and a personal connection that supports your heart and mind in the Central Tennessee area, then join Unity of Nashville at 10 a.m. every Sunday morning at 5125 Franklin Pike. For more information, head over to unityofnashville.org. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Bam.
Nice. I feel like I should clap.
I know, that was Ken Lovern on the B3. Awesome, Ken. Love it, love it, love it. Love it. I just love feeling your groove with you, man. That is awesome. Awesome. You know, as you were playing, well, for one thing, it put me right back when I was in Kansas City recently hanging out with you, and I'm hoping to do that again soon. But I really feel so strongly that that gig at the Green Lady is what it is because of your dream to have that happen and to have that be your life and your career. So I really applaud you for that because it's amazing the amount of community you've built down there. I mean, it really, really is between, like I was mentioning before the break, with all the different ages listening to jazz. And I think it's a really special place you've created down there for music, but not only that, just for people to connect. You know, I think that's really important.
Yeah, the club owner really had a vision to have a place that was comfortable to be in. You know, he's got the low lighting, he's got the really nice lamps. You know, and a part of his thing was a place where you know, people want to come because you got the low lighting and stuff, so everybody looks good there. My wife's like, I always look good at the Green Lady, you know, and he was, you know, because his aunt was a big jazz fan, and he was introduced to that, and he'd go out to hear acts, and he's just like, oh, this could be presented so much better. Yeah. You know,
well,
and so John Scott's his name, and he really has worked hard to make that club a cool place to be. You know, when you're listening to jazz, and tried to present jazz in a way that people would enjoy it, and where it could succeed, and it's been a big success. It's had a huge effect on the Kansas City jazz scene. I mean, a lot of places are having jazz because it's been successful somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I was thinking on the way here a little bit when we were talking that the couple of, there's, you know, I love so many styles of music and have played so many styles, but there's something about jazz and even old folk tunes that I like because they're about real life. You know, to me, music now, I'm starting to sound like really old, but music now to me is all about booty, you know. All the music now is about booty, and it is. It's about shaking your booty. It's about getting booty. You know.
Well, to be fair, that's nothing new to popular
music.
That isn't
you could
go
new.
Back to 18th century madrigals in here, that kind of thing.
Well, that's true, but what I love about jazz, I mean, you can have a song about a tree, you can have a song about. I was thinking of Poinciana, right? And by the way, that's a city here in Florida, Poinciana, and you can have a song about yes, about love, but. So anyway,
it's not vulgar.
Yeah,
there's a certain vulgarity to current popular music.
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. But there's something. Of course, there's some jazz at its time that was very much like, whoa. Did Billie Holiday just say that? But I feel like it's about real life, and there's a way I connect with that different than other music, and it could be just because I grew up on it, and so it's super familiar to me. But it was always going in the in our jewelry shop at the house.
Oh, wow.
There was always jazz going with a lot of creative things happening. So I love the medium, that genre for that reason. And again, the quality you guys put out's pretty darn amazing.
Well, I think there's something special about improvised music, and
there is. Mm-hmm.
And when you have a group of musicians improvising in front of a live audience, there's a group consciousness that happens because the musicians are working together to create something, and depending on the framework of the song, they might know a little about what's going to happen next, or they might not know much at all. And depending on exactly what kind of format they're using, but generally there's a lot of open-ended parts to a tune of things. They can go different directions, or people can respond in different ways, or play different grooves.
Yeah,
and there's a certain feeling to that where something's being created in the moment through a joining of consciousness, and audiences can feel it. I can feel it as an audience member.
Yes.
And that's really the magic I'm always chasing when I play gigs. And I've done a lot of gigs where there wasn't hardly any of that.
Right.
Playing at a playing. Well, if you're having to read everything, that's a different kind of excellence, and it can certainly be excellent. But there's something about when it's improvised that really, and people are listening and paying attention, and the musicians are really trying to create the best thing they can in any given moment. That's really it really draws people in, and it people who are music people get drawn in, but even people who aren't, if they'll give it a chance, they'll get drawn into it.
Yeah, like you say, there's a tremendous creative energy. That happens, and I think I feel the same when I'm doing my messages,
Sure.
when I'm doing the podcast, that there's an energy that I'm working with, and it's really funny because one of the members of our band at CCU, who's a great jazz musician, said to me, "Your talks are like jazz," and I had never really thought about that, but I was like, yes, and that also may be a reason I connect with it, is what you're saying about it, and the because there's not a lot of hard edges. I mean, there's a beginning, and you're going to end, but how you get there, is open for creativity, discussion as you go. And I think there's a tremendous amount of trust that has to happen of yourself, your abilities, and even the other musicians as well, to be able to do that. And I think that's felt also,
Right. And trusting in the universe, just
exactly
that the next step's going to be there. Somebody defined swing as something. It's an affirmation of the next moment. That you're trusting that the next idea is going to be there.
Yes,
and that's true whether you're speaking or playing music. If you're willing to allow things to flow. If you're willing to trust the flow and learning to trust the flow, that's where the magic happens. The best music I've ever played, I didn't feel like I was the one playing it. I was just channeling it.
Yes.
And that's, as a composer, that's the best compositions. And as an improviser, those are the best improvisations, are the ones where it's just kind of playing through me. And so then the act of learning, your skills as a musician become making yourself the best instrument you can possibly be to have the universe channel music through you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it kind of goes back to something I was saying earlier a little bit. I mean, you have to have the skill, and when you're first learning your scales, you can't possibly have a concept of how you're going to need it later. The dexterity, you have to have them in your hands to be able to be used by spirit. You have to have a certain level of mastery, in your work to really be able to be a channel at the level you're talking about. which reminds me of one of the first things that we discussed 20 years ago. A book came out called Effortless Mastery by Kenny Werner, and because he was a jazz musician, you actually told a mutual friend of ours about it, Fred Albers, and then I proceeded to join together with Fred and another friend named Jill, and we did the meditations from Kenny's book every single day for a year. I don't know if you ever knew that we did that, but
no, I knew you guys were doing it, and you guys were doing that at work, man.
I know, right?
That's awesome.
I was paid to meditate, praise God. But in that book, Effortless Mastery, that's the space he talks about that you're describing.
Yeah.
The space we try to move into, and the idea is that we move into it in life, not just in music, not just in speaking, obviously, friends. So if you're listening and you're going, well, I can't relate, apply that to whatever it is you do, and it's really life itself that we want to be in a space of mastery in life itself. We don't want everything we do to have to be some big arduous task, but we want to be in the flow. We want to be receiving information. We want to be a channel of good, as we go through life. And this is the idea you're speaking of.
Right. And I think setting goals but not, so you set a goal, but not be too attached to the way you're going to achieve the goal.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a thing in the Abraham Hicks where they talk about, you want to go with the stream. Downstream thoughts are the thoughts, the positive thoughts. And a lot of times we want to turn that canoe around and paddle upstream because hard work pays off. And then the beauty, the statement is, but nothing you want is upstream. If you really feel like you're fighting upstream, the chance is that you're headed towards something you don't want.
Yeah. It's really simple. Mm-hmm.
And I do believe in perseverance and hard work, but perseverance and hard work in a way that it feels good. If it feels like I'm struggling, it feels like, just the universe is against me today, well, there's a good chance maybe I'm off course.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel that way. That's how relationships are. Like if you're paddling upstream the entire relationship, then maybe that relationship doesn't need to happen.
Yeah, or it needs to change form or something. Yeah. Exactly. Well, Ken, one of the ways you've told me, well, first of all, I want to ask you. I'm not gonna. I'm leading the witness. I was going to ask you about how you get into that space. For you, I know I talk all the time about stuff I do, but I'd love for our listeners to hear, how do you move into that space? Like, are there certain strategies, to stay really centered? Are you meditating, or what are your practices that, because we have listeners all over the world in all different careers. We have everybody from military who are serving overseas to, stay-at-home moms and dads and teenagers who listen to the show. So anything you might share, I'm sure, would support where our listeners are in their process. So what do you do to find that space, stay grounded in your work that might help our listeners?
A lot of it is just years of playing music and feeling how good it feels when you're in a good place. And so there's a pull of a desire of wanting to be there. And then so much of it is keeping my life in a good place to where I'm well rested, my energy's right for the gig, that when I come to the gig, I'm ready, I'm in a good place energy wise for that time of day. I do yoga. I try to go to a class at least once a week. When I was really happening, I was going to a class 2 or 3 times a week.
Yoga? Yeah.
Right. And so I try to go to at least once a week, and I do yoga at home. I meditate, pretty much every day. And sometimes that's, a 10-minute guided meditation. Sometimes it's 15 minutes in the silence. Sometimes I do it while I'm doing yoga. I'll kind of count that double if it's the right type of yoga practice. I wouldn't.
Right.
It depends on that. But, and part of it is just self-monitoring. If I feel like I'm elevated or I'm agitated about things, I have a couple hours before the gig where I know I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to try and finish a project. I'm not going to be on the phone. I'm not going to pay bills,
Yeah.
Where I set up time where I eat, I take a nap, I take a shower, I go to the gig. And by having that kind of routine where I set aside the struggles of, the other potential struggles in my life, I just set those aside. And there used to be a time where I'd try and get a bunch of stuff done right before the gig or whatever. I'd rush to the gig. And sometimes that would work, but a lot of times that would, I just wouldn't be in the right place.
Yeah. You mean you'd be like two in your head and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's one night a week. I usually play my gigs at 6:00 start. On Fridays, I start at 8, and that is a little bit of a challenge for me. It's just a different. Yeah. It's just a different rhythm, and some Fridays, I feel great about it. Other Fridays, I'm like, I just wasn't in as good a place as I'd like to be, and I think it's a different time of day, and that creates some challenges for me. So things like that. And part of it's just paying attention to things like that. And kind of monitoring myself. Am I feeling elevated? Am I feeling present? And I do think for me, and I try to always ask this when I get a chance to go to master classes and clinics, and some people have a good answer, and some musicians, I think, are just such natural players, they don't think about this, but I'm always asking, and I'm always curious about, for me, I think the biggest thing to having a good performance is being in the right mental state for it,
Totally.
That I'm in this relaxed, focused. I'm focused, but I'm relaxed. I'm present, but I'm not, thinking in my head. That Inner Game of Tennis book is, and of course the Kenny Werner Effortless Mastery. Those are good, sort of books that talk about that. The right mental state for creating. And so sometimes I'll get to the gig and like my mind is just thinking about everything but what I'm doing,
Yeah. What was that? What was that tennis book again? Because we're going to have
the Inner Game of Tennis. The Inner Game of Tennis.
Link for that in our show
Yeah, that
notes.
came out, I want to say probably mid-'70s. And it was about playing tennis. And one of the guys' points is, if somebody hits a ball to your left side and you've got to think, I'm going to hit a backhand, I'm pulling my left arm across my body, the ball's gone. Right.
Yeah, the ball's already gone. Yeah.
And so he talks about how you have to practice all those skills, but when you're in the effort, when you're in the process of playing a tennis game, you don't want to be thinking about it. You don't want to be in your head. And it's sort of that athletes talk about that peak performance space.
Yeah.
Where they're present, but they're not really thinking in their head.
Yeah, my concept of that is a flow state.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah. In the other book too, Ken, and I don't know, Kenny Werner referred to it a lot too. The Zen and the Art of Archery is another one that's all about that.
Yeah, and then there's Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Yep,
Right.
Yep, exactly. I forgot about that one. That's hilarious. Well, and I think what I love about it, I was just talking to a friend recently, and we did a show a couple months ago called Spirituality is the Latest Trend, because the idea is that spirituality, we want it in every aspect of life. So, and I think you're speaking to that. It doesn't matter if you're a motorcycle mechanic or a musician or a minister or a producer or a composer. The idea is to be in this flow of life, which of course is feeling the energy of the whole universe moving through, as you create what's yours to do. I think that's probably one of the most important things for all of us to remember.
Well, I like that concept that the universe is the creation of the universe, and that we are part of the universe creating itself.
Yes.
I like that concept, and that's I always find that sort of reassuring. It's like, well, how could I do it wrong? I'm just the universe creating itself.
Yeah.
One of the things I was saying about the when I'm playing and I do hear the voices, I'm not in a good place. I have some techniques I use where it's like, I'm just going to listen to the ride cymbal. I'm just going to focus on one thing to bring me back to the music. That's a very specific to the music thing, but it's true in a lot of things. Find something you can focus on that brings you back to what you're doing, and to what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, a very, very wise advice, because in the present, right, we find everything we need in the present moment.
Right. Yeah, that's funny that I'll start worrying about things and it's like, well, that's in the future, or I'll feel bad about something. Well, that's in the past, right now, everything's okay.
Yeah, that's for future me. I say that all the time. It's for future Dave to worry about.
Exactly. Well, and I think it's so important too for us to understand our place in the universe. I think I've been doing a lot of research recently for a number of reasons on the different generational differences. There's millennials, there's boomers. I'm a Gen Xer, and how we go through life. And I think in all those delineations, there seems to be a forgetfulness about the importance we play in the larger picture. As you're saying, we are the universe creating itself. So, but to be aware of that, then changes our perspective, because we realize we are part of a greater whole. And yes, we are individuals, but that everything we do has such a larger impact in the universe itself and what happens next. So if I had anything to leave with our listeners today, I would want to really pick up on what you said, Ken, about that I'm just the universe creating itself. And for us to be mindful of the larger role we play, because it for me, gives me a huge sense of responsibility for how I do want to show up, right? And that I do want to be on purpose, and I want to be living from my place of passion and love and from my wholeness, because of course then that brings more of that into the universe itself.
Yes. Yeah. I like that.
Well, Ken, I'm really glad you were with us today, and we will put in the show notes, information about Green Lady Lounge, too. But is there anything you want to say, because your band OJT has I love that new album I got from you. I love vinyl, I love my vinyl that I got from you. Do you want to at least give the name of that? We can put a link to that in our show notes, so if people can hear more of your music.
Yeah, KenLovern.com.
KenLovern.com. Okay.
Yeah, and OJT is the name of that group, and you can get it on any of the streaming or download services. You can buy CDs from my website, CD Baby. To get a record, you just email me and I mail them out.
Yeah.
So it's pretty low tech there, but retro tech.
We love it. How personal is that? We love the personal touch. Well, and I thought it was great we got you to play on your own, because I know you usually play with a band, but I am telling you were killing it today, just you on the B3.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of solo organ performances, so that was kind of a one-off. That was a tune of mine called Ethan Orange, which is named after a coffee drink that's how I introduce it. This is Ethan Orange, named after the coffee drink that makes this all possible for me.
Awesome. Well, Ken, thanks again for joining us today. As always, you are always a blessing in my life, and I know our listeners are happy to hear more about your life and your work, and of course your spiritual process. So we have friends joining us all over the world, and it's really amazing how people do connect in. And with it being the holidays, I'm sure people will be buying your some of your recordings for themselves and for friends, and also going online to our site, to experienceofthesoul.com, and getting our new products. We've got several new products out there we're pretty proud of. There's, believe it or not, there's a cologne, and there's a soap, and so we just think that's pretty cool. There's even a chocolate that's just made special for us. So thank you for all the ways you support the show, friends, and we do wish you a wonderful, wonderful holiday season, and we know we'll talk to you more. But blessings on the journey, dear friend, and thank you for joining us today.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, J.J. Hamilton, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, Nora Miles, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, Susanna Garcia, and Shayla Mount. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2019, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.